I am so excited to share my latest resource, downloadable print your own flashcard decks. These have been created following my many years working with children of all abilities in the clinical setting. And my themed flashcard decks work. The kids love them because they're engaging and they encourage movement, learning, coping skills, and just plain fun. From dinosaurs to Halloween, each deck includes suggested and themed centering techniques, warm-ups, guided meditation, relaxation, yoga-based movement, and games. Each card in the deck includes multiple yoga-based practices to choose from, meaning you can enjoy a different experience each time you play, and there will always be something that's suitable and accessible for the child you are working with or the setting you are working in. These are highly adaptable tools, and they work in the classroom, hospital, office, or home setting. Download and print on card or paper stock of your choice and enjoy creative, adaptable, and accessible adventures for many years to come with children of all abilities and in all settings. I promise you will not regret adding a set of 2 of these to your resource collection. And keep checking in. I have created a lot of these decks over the many years I worked in the clinical setting with children of all abilities, and I'm slowly updating and releasing them to the public so that all children can benefit from these wonderful tools.
Hi, I'm Lisa Roberts, and welcome to session 12 of Movement, Meditation, and Mindfulness, a training program for pediatric professionals, educators, and parents. Today's session is session 12, and we'll be exploring arts, crafts, and journaling, and how to incorporate these expressive therapies into movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions so that they are developmentally appropriate, developmentally supportive, and beneficial for children. We did in session 7, we've already explored some expressive therapies and integrating these into movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions. We explored dance and movement. We've explored incorporating props and music and song. So that was in session 10. And I invite you to check out that webinar if you did not attend that webinar. But today we're going to focus on arts, crafts, and journaling and how to incorporate these into your sessions. So before we talk about what kind of arts and crafts are appropriate and reinforce your lessons and ability to educate children and encourage them to practice movement, meditation, and mindfulness, let's explore some of the benefits of arts and crafts. So I'm going to put journaling aside for a moment, even though arts and crafts can be a form of journaling, and we'll discuss that a little later today. But the benefits of arts and crafts, when we just think of arts and crafts and creating and making something and painting and drawing and all those fun things, we're stimulating the senses and supporting sensory development for children. We're also creating a sense of play and fun and joy, and this all equates to kid appeal. The more fun and playful and engaging it is, the more appealing it is for children to want to participate. And that helps to engage them, engage children, and encourage participation in the sessions. It's a fun way to introduce these really valuable skills. So we know that movement, meditation, and mindfulness is really good for kids, but by being creative and finding fun ways to educate children and encourage them to practice is what's going to make it really appealing for children. We're also helping to support a child's social development and social skills. If you think about doing a craft together as a group, they learn to share the craft items. Children learn to recognize and praise others' work and what others are creating. And then we're also engaging in group activities. If we're doing a group activity together, doing a craft together before or after our movement meditation and mindfulness session, or as part of our movement meditation and mindfulness session, we're encouraging that social interaction and participating in a group activity. We're also supporting the creative expression for children and imagination, and we're activating the right brain hemisphere. And we'll talk a little bit more about that theory in just a moment. And for those of you who have attended my previous webinars, we also explored some crafts in meditation and breathing techniques. And 2 separate webinars. So we did some breathing techniques, and I showed ways you could incorporate props, and also props that the child has made, and the same with meditation. And here's why this is really valuable for when you're working with children, because it gives them a sense of ownership. If I've created something and I've poured my creativity and my imagination and my heart and soul, and I'm so proud of it, not only is that engaging during the session, but I take that home. Gives me a sense of ownership, a sense of pride, and it encourages that practice beyond your session. If I've made something and I really love it, and I really enjoy it in my session with you, and I take it home, then I am more likely to pick that item up and continue practicing way beyond our session. So that's why I like incorporating this into the sessions. So let's talk about the left brain and right brain theory. The cerebrum accounts for 80% of the brain, so that's the big part of the brain. I don't have a picture of the brain with me, but if you've all seen images of the brain, there's different parts of the brain, and this is the big part of the brain. It almost looks like a jellyfish. And this is our thinking, our analyzing, our reasoning, short and long-term memory. But scientists believe that the right side of the cerebrum is used for creative and abstract thinking, and the left side is for more analytical thinking, such as math or reading or speaking. So when we're introducing creative projects into our sessions, we're helping children to balance the left and right side, to activate that right side, to access it, and get in touch with their creative side. So that's that left brain, right brain theory. But for today, we're going to explore different props and how we can integrate props to support mindful breathing, how we can not props, arts and crafts, I beg your pardon, how we can integrate arts and crafts and journaling into mindful breathing crafts, how we can introduce it into mindful movement sessions, and how we can integrate it into meditation as well. So we're going to start with breathing, and I've got some mindful breathing crafts. I'm not going to take you through instructional step-by-steps, but rather I'm going to show you the crafts that I have made, and we're going to discuss them, and I'll discuss how they're made. I just figured this was a better approach. We cover a lot more material if I already have the props made. If I was taking you through a demo of each one, it would be like a 5-hour crafting session with only one person crafting, and that's no fun at all. So I'm going to begin, and you've potentially seen this one if you've attended the other webinars, the folding and decorating a paper boat. So I folded this boat and I decorated it. I called it the SS Belly Boat. And this, we then use for breathing. We place it on the belly and it goes up and down with the breath. So we have the belly rising and falling like the ocean with each breath, and the boat going for that nice smooth ride. Now, folding paper boats is also origami. And origami requires focus, it requires attention. So even making the boat, we're participating in a mindful meditation. And decorating the boat however you like, the child can personalize it. And if the child then takes this boat home, they're going to remember, oh, I remember that belly boat float. I remember doing that breathing technique. And that will encourage the child to practice on their own, doing those nice deep belly breaths, taking something that they owned and created with them. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we can use paper boats and incorporate them in movement sessions. So I'm just going to put that one aside for now. So that's folding a paper boat. If you don't remember how to fold a paper boat, And I have to admit, I was stumped the first time I was introducing this into a class with a group of kids, and I was super challenged by it. I thought it would come back to me like riding a bike. And just if you just Google folding a paper boat, you can find YouTube tutorials and step-by-step instructional handouts. You'll find ways to do it online, and it will come back to you eventually. It's actually quite easy, but don't rely on your memory if you're past 40 like I am. Okay, so parachutes. So we talked about using scarves in breathing and relaxation. Sorry, I can't speak today. I think I need more breathing techniques or a stretch or maybe some more coffee. So my parachute got a little tangled somehow. But you can see I've made this parachute by simply attaching some string or some yarn to a little weight. And then I like using this one because we talk about the breath, but also how we can connect the breath to feeling relaxed. And I like this because it creates a nice visual. You can obviously use it for a little bit of a lesson on gravity if you wanted to as well. But I just like to give children the visual of the scarf just falling down. And when we have more space, you can often catch the parachute and it will float a little more. When the air gets under the parachute, we actually get a little bit more flotation. And we talk about using that exhale to last as long as it takes for the parachute to fall, and then to allow the body to feel as floaty and fluid as the scarf, using that exhale to relax and having the visual. And again, something that you can make at the start of a session, and while the glue is drying, do your movement, meditation, mindfulness session, and then end the session on this, and the children can take it home. Any of these crafts fit in at any stage during your sessions. If you have the luxury of ongoing sessions with children, it's something you can incorporate kind of at the end and have whatever the children made available for the next session. So you can kind of make ahead, and that way everything, your paints are dry and your glues are dry and everything's ready to go. So below painting, I don't have any, I'm not going to demonstrate that today, but below painting, there's a little example on the screen, just sheets of paper. I always try to use washable, non-toxic paints for children, but little liquid, pouring the paint on the page and then blowing it through a straw. So we're becoming aware of the breath. Immediately you can see what the breath is doing, control the breath to change where the paint goes on the page, and then make your super cute creations with your blow painting masterpieces after, of course. And then the pinwheel. So we can easily buy pinwheels, but they're so super easy to make. This one I made just using a square of origami paper, and I did 2 colors. So I have a pink and a green back to back. And from the square paper, I just cut with the scissors, really for the length of the scissors in each corner. And then you simply fold it in and pin it through. And I've got it pinned on a straw. And to help it stay in the straw, I actually filled, I don't know if you can see here, I'm just bringing it a little bit closer. I actually filled the straw with glue and allowed that to dry, and then pop a little push pin in there. Now for safety, you may want to put the end of a razor and the razor of a pencil on the end of the point, just to stop anyone from hurting themselves on the sharp point. And then we have a lovely little pinwheel. Okay, so they're fun and easy to make. And again, the folding of the paper, just any kind of crafting or art requires focus. So whether you're creating these or bringing these arts and crafts in to reinforce a breathing technique or reinforce meditation skills or enhance your movement sessions, they all require some element of focus. So you are introducing active meditation regardless of what purpose you're introducing your craft project for. So there's a couple of examples for mindful breathing. And coming back to meditation crafts now, we talked about the boat. Folding the boat is essentially origami, and origami requires a lot of focus. And I have a little stack of origami paper. I actually found this one at the Muji store. I'll do a close-up of that. Muji, I'm just not sure if we can see. MUJI is the store. But you could probably find it online. I'm sure Amazon, Oriental Trading probably has. But you can see it's lovely, colorful sheets of square paper. And this one came with a book with some really simple folds through some rather complex ones. So I love just sitting with the kids and we fold origami together and discuss, and as we're working together, especially if it's a craft that's geared toward meditation, I encourage children to say, how do you feel? What are you thinking about? Maybe at the end of the session, were you thinking about anything else, or were you focused on the bird? Or if we're folding a bird, I'm just using that as an example because the crane is on the cover of the book. And that just to encourage that inner reflection and just to reward a child, hey, did you know that's meditation? You're focused just on one thing and you're letting everything else go aside. And how does that feel? How does that feel to have a free, clear mind where you're just focused on one thing? And that's how you can introduce meditation, which we talked a lot about in the webinar, Active Meditation for Children. So I won't go on too much about that, but just in case you did not see that webinar, I want to highlight the purpose of this. So I have a few more crafts that are wonderful and geared towards meditation and relaxation. We also have the eye socks. So this is a plain one. And you can see on the screen, we have one that's been painted to look like a fish. So all this is a white sock filled with rice. I've tied it off with a hair tie. And now it's ready to decorate. But the weight of the rice, when it's placed over the eyes, without glasses, of course, gently placed over the eyes when a child is resting in a supine position or on their back, on a yoga mat, or on their bed, or on the couch, wherever you're teaching them, and you place this on the eyes, it's just that little bit of extra weight. It sends the message via the nervous system, hey, it's time to calm down, it's time to relax. It also blocks out the light and just provides just enough sensory input to help to activate the rest or digest or the parasympathetic nervous system. So eye pillows, eye socks, great craft. And this is one I would encourage incorporating in a session, doing some guided relaxation and sending it home with a child, or if you have time at the end of the session, then decorating it. So if you do use paints or glitter glue or anything like that, they have time to dry before they're placed on the eyes. So that's another fun one for meditation crafts. And the making of your own beads. Let me just find my beads here. I have so many fun props here today. Oh, here they are. So these are another one that we did explore in an earlier webinar. So I'll just quickly revisit them. So these are meditation beads or breathing beads, and great craft for children to connect to the breath. So we use a bead for an inhale, we use a bead for an exhale, and then whenever we land on the purple bead, in this case, it is a happy thought. So I'm just going to close my eyes and think of my happy thought, and then I'm going back to my inhale on pink, my exhale on blue. And then when I hit the purple, it's time just to breathe and relax and think of my happy thought. So breathing beads, crafting and making your own beads is a wonderful meditation tool. Again, as with all of them, something the kids can take home with them after their session or keep as a reminder of the skills that they've learned in your sessions. And then we have the mind jar, or the snow globe meditation, as I call it. And they don't have to be big jars like this. You can get the small little crafting jars or the small little mason jars that work just as well. Even though test tube style ones with the lid, I've seen some of those in crafting stores. Just something that is a reminder that, hey, yes, sometimes our minds do feel like this, and we can place a thought to each color of the glitter, to each different color. We can place a different thought and then quietly settle our mind and those thoughts as the glitter settles in the jar. Okay, and just one more. This isn't a craft per se. It is more of a prop that I would have loved to have included in my active meditation webinar, and I did not. So I'm going to include it today. So this is called a Buddha board, and I've just got the little one, but you can actually get larger ones, and relatively inexpensive. So it comes, just putting it so you can see, it's got this little special mat and a brush. So I'm just going to pop the brush in some water, and when you put the water on the board, you can draw on the board. So I'm just doing a couple of little squiggles. And what I love about this is I then use it as a meditation tool. We slowly and quietly just settle and watch as the picture changes. And it eventually fades away. And I love this because it's a nice, valuable lesson in impermanence, that things do change and don't always stay the same. I've played with this with children, and we've sat and watched, and as parts of whatever they've created fade away, we start to see new images, kind of like when you're watching the clouds and naming the different shapes in the clouds. So I'll use that rather than just watching the whole image fade. We turn it into a game where we're still focused on whatever is occurring here, and we're playing a game and naming what it can change into, what it's changing into, what we observe. And again, that's still keeping that meditation piece in play. So this is a wonderful little prop to add to your prop box for teaching meditation to children. So I just put that aside for now. So that's just some more. So we've looked at props that we can utilize to encourage breathing. We've looked at props and crafts we can create to encourage meditation. I keep saying props because I guess in a way we're tapping into expressive therapies and creating things and being creative, but then we're utilizing those in our session to reinforce, and we're utilizing the things we make in arts and crafts as props to reinforce breathing and meditation and movement. So let's explore some mindful movement crafts. So we can paint toes, we can paint fingers, we can paint faces, and then create our movement sessions around those. We can make puppets, and you can make them with socks. You can make little toilet roll puppets that you can then slide onto 2 or 3 fingers, depending on the size of the fingers. So you can create your own puppets, and then bring those into the story. We can create masks. So this is a nice, simple lion that I made, and I didn't have any tongue depressors or popsicle sticks around, so I just used a plastic knife that I had in my kitchen from an outdoor picnic, and then I glued it to just a regular old paper plate, and voila, we have a mask. So you don't need a lot of fancy things to create masks. You just take a look at what's around in your kitchen, what's around your office space. Or of course you can get fancy and go to the arts and crafts store where they have blank masks ready to be painted and all kinds of things, but you can very easily make them from a paper plate, as I did with this lion. And even the mane is just a cut up napkin. I had some yellow napkins, probably from the same picnic that the knife came from. And voila, we have our lion. And of course we can interchange masks with children, and everyone can take a turn creating a movement stretch or a breathing technique based on whatever mask they're placing on their face that day. So a lot of fun making masks. Back to the boat. I remember folding these boats as a child with really big sheets of newspaper, and they became hats. Voila. So the same concept, folding the boat, you can fold a hat, and you can identify what that hat is. And maybe you can see how this one, when I expanded it here so it will balance on my head, it has 4 sides. You could even say, I'm going to go with animals just because we had the lion, but you're only limited by your creativity. So whatever theme you're doing, we could have a lion, a zebra, an elephant, and a monkey. And we could turn the hat around according to what we're going to bring into the movement session. You can interchange hats with children and lead stretches or movement that are based on whatever's being indicated on the particular hat they're wearing, and then change them, of course, so you have some variety. So that's another fun way to bring something that you're crafting in the session and then turning it into a movement session. And then, this is my favorite. I love encouraging children to explore what their favorite part of the session was, what resonated with them on that particular day. And then I've called them pipe cleaners here because that's what I grew up calling them. And I was leading a professional development very recently. And I said, is this appropriate calling them pipe cleaners? It just seems so counterintuitive to encouraging children to be healthy, because a pipe is a pipe. And everyone I spoke to said, no, we call them pipe cleaners. But I did discover something recently when I was looking for some new crafts to do with the kids I work with. And I saw somebody called it fuzzy wire, and I love that. I think it's so much more appropriate when working with children. So from now on, I do need to change my PowerPoint. We are going to call it fuzzy wire because I think that is just a much nicer expression. And you can see I have my little fuzzy wire man here, or woman, and they're sitting in butterfly pose with their hands at their heart space. So I created my favorite yoga pose here, and I just stuck some googly eyes on and a little heart, and she or he sits on my desk very, very happily. And then I have another one that I made doing Warrior 2. So that's a traditional yoga pose. We discussed the yoga poses, some basics of yoga poses in earlier webinars. So if you're a little stuck on those, my program and what I encourage is all yoga based. And so if you're not feeling confident with yoga poses, certainly go back and review those webinars, and you'll get a really good basic understanding of some of the basics of yoga. And we will be expanding on those in future webinars, especially when we look at therapeutic movement, meditation, and mindfulness, and targeted sessions for specific outcomes. We'll also be exploring adapting those movements and those yoga-based stretches for the chair and bed to benefit children in the clinical setting and classroom. So I do recommend going back and checking out those webinars. I apologize for the digression, and we are going to move on to some more fun arts and crafts. So why do I have musical instruments, and why am I thinking mindful music crafts? As we've discussed before in previous sessions, and we talked about music and song and how that is helpful and an expressive art, a wonderful expressive tool to incorporate in your sessions, humans respond to music. It's a really wonderful way to connect with each other. But also when you think about it, we're talking a lot about the breath and the rhythm of the breath. And we're responding to that. We have our own natural drum beating in our chest all day long. So it's something that we respond to on a very deep primal level. But also just to experience music together, to create sound together is very unifying. I like it because it's a fun way, and again, if we're making our own, or even if we're bringing musical instruments that we aren't crafting, we're just bringing regular old musical instruments into the session, it's just something that can help encourage movement. If we're making a sound, it's very, just go shake some maracas. It's very difficult to sit still, perfectly still, and shake maracas. You can't help but start moving with that rhythm. You naturally respond to it. So I think it's just a wonderful tool to incorporate in your sessions to encourage engagement, to encourage movement, to encourage unity. And again, just moving, creating sound together. It encourages eye contact. It encourages social interaction, develops communication and language skills as well. So I highly recommend incorporating music. And again, this is really helpful if your kids don't really like moving or feel it's a little challenging to encourage a child to move. If you start making some musical instruments and then you're playing them together, movement will follow naturally. So I'm going to go through just a few of the musical instruments I've crafted with kids. And I'll start with something that's quite typical yoga. And this is a nice one that you can then segue into your relaxation as well. So I'll just... So if you've never seen one of these before, it's a rain stick. So all I did to make this, it's a paper towel roll, and it doesn't have to be a paper towel roll. Any roll will do. It could be, from aluminum foil or cling wrap. So this is a paper towel. Inside the paper towel roll, I painted it, made it pretty on the outside. Inside, I scrunched up some aluminum foil. So long, skinny rolls. I have 2 in there of aluminum foil, and I scrunched them up and made them spiral shape. And then I inserted them in here. So what that does, because then I filled with, these are actually lentils I have in here. So I put it up close. I've got uncooked lentils in there. Don't put cooked ones, they're way too soft. So you want the dry lentils, or you could use popcorn kernels, or you could try some bigger beans. I prefer something smaller so to get that more of that rain sound ongoing. And so the spiral aluminum just helps to add some resistance. And it takes a little longer for some of the lentils to make their way down that shaft, and that adds and helps to create that rain sound. So I've just got some cling wrap or glad wrap. I'm not sure. I'm Australian, so sometimes I can't help it. I fall into Australian colloquialism, so forgive me. But plastic wrap or sandwich wrap, I'm trying to think of all the different names I've called it in all the different countries I've lived in. So just some plastic wrap at the end, a paper towel roll, some coils of aluminum foil, some dry grain. So I have lentils. You could, like I say, use popcorn as well. And then I just put some pretty ribbon on the end just to make it a pretty piece. And then you have your rain stick. So another musical instrument. What's next? So we have this fun looking thing. It's a kazoo. So again, toilet roll. I covered it with a little bit of wax paper at the end, and that just helps to create that vibration of sound when I blow in there. And I just bedazzled mine. I put some tissue paper around it. I glued some feathers and some sparkly jewels on it just to make it a little fancy. And again, you don't have to go this fancy. The basic need is the toilet roll and the wax paper, And then you're free to explore different ways to decorate these. You can use crayons and paints and whatever you like. There's really no hard or fast rules of how they're decorated. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this when we segue into journaling during this session today. But allowing kids to choose too and explore how they want to decorate it is a form of journaling. It is a form of them expressing and exploring how they're feeling and being able to express that in their art and craft. So you may not want to have just a set hard and fast way to design, to add the design element, to make the actual basic instrument or craft, whichever craft you're doing. But to have some freedom for children to choose is where you're really not just making a prop that incorporates what you're learning into a session, but allows children to express and explore how they're feeling. That's what's really important too. So the breathing beads, you'll recognize these. We've got the breathing beads. I just added some bells. And then we have a new musical instrument, and we can still use them for the breathing. So if you're using those, you can just add some bells and you have the musical instrument. And we have a little tambourine that I made, and that's very simple. It's a paper plate. I painted and decorated the plate, and then I glued some little mini bells on it. And if you're working with younger children, you can help glue the bells on, or any small parts on, or help with gluing, help with cutting. You can, if you're working with younger children and parents, you can encourage the parent to help the child. So don't be afraid to introduce some of these for younger children, just knowing that, knowing the child's abilities and where you can step in and help, or where you as the adult can leave certain portions for you to do for them after they've decorated their plate. Perhaps they're doing some movement and you have an assistant or someone who will then glue the bells on. I'm using that as an example. It can be fill in the blank of whatever is challenging for that developmental stage. And then we have our guitar. So this fun little, more like a little banjo, or a banjo crossed with a ukulele in the size that I made. So this was very simple to make. I don't know if you can hear the different sounds depending on which string I pluck. So again, this is a paper plate with some elastic bands attached to it. I decorated the plate, and then I just out of cardboard cut the stem of the guitar. Now I don't play guitar, so I probably calling that a stem is probably totally the wrong term, and I apologize to any musicians watching this, but we've made a cute little guitar. So you can see there's lots of different ways to incorporate music and sound, which can really help get kids up and moving and connecting. And another one, it's a little loud, so I won't shake it and speak at the same time. This is a, I call it like a half moon shaker. It's just a paper plate, a large dinner-sized paper plate, folded in half, and inside I have, I put uncooked pasta. So there's uncooked pasta shells, and I think I also put some lentils just to create a different sound. Again, not cooked. You don't want to put your cooked pasta in here. So you want dry beans, dry peas, popcorn kernels, lentils, anything like that, just dry. And then I sealed it and decorated it. And voila, we have this little shaker. And last but not least, I have an old coffee tin. I simply put some stickers on it and covered it in colorful paper. And then I decorated a spoon, just a regular old plastic spoon. I'll put it down on the desk. It might be here makes a better sound. We have a simple drum. So, and that's just, if you Google and look out there and talk to friends and talk to teachers and just share ideas. There's so many different crafts out there. It's just really taking a moment to think about it and saying, does this work for movement, meditation, and mindfulness? Is it age appropriate? Will it be really easy for my kids to do? If it's something that's challenging, maybe you want to leave it for an older age group, or as I said earlier, the bells, something like that as an example. Just allow the kids to do what they can, and then the adults will do the finishing touches, or the ones that are a little bit tricky for fine motor skills, that, the kids who haven't developed their fine motor skills. So lots of different things you can do out there. And this is just a nice broad sampling to A, inspire you, B, give you some ideas that you can run with immediately, and C, just to really demonstrate how arts and crafts can be incorporated both as an expressive therapy, but also as a focus-based activity that you can incorporate to reinforce movement, meditation, and mindfulness skills, and encourage children to practice them beyond your session. So we're going to go into journaling now. And when we think of journaling, we think of writing in a diary. And of course, I do encourage this. This works well for some older children, but not everybody can express that way. So let's just step back and think what journaling is. Journaling encourages self-awareness. It also encourages inner reflection and inner exploration. And journaling can give a voice to what we are discovering in this self-awareness and self-reflection journey. So it can be used as a tool for children to explore how they feel after a movement, meditation, and mindfulness session, to take that moment to reflect on their experiences, which then will be like, oh, how can I apply this to my real life or everyday situations? Reflecting through journaling can help children to start to reflect on their experiences outside the session. Now, journaling with arts and crafts. So as I mentioned, we can, and there's nothing wrong with encouraging kids just to take some time to just journal at the end in the traditional way. But it can also come out using props. So as you're crafting, how about a discussion? Is that a form of journaling? Well, of course it is. If you're starting a discussion and you're encouraging inner reflection and allowing children to voice how they're feeling if they feel comfortable, but also giving them the option to keep it private and not participate if it's a group. But the crafts themselves, that can be a way a child is expressing. So journaling doesn't have to be just writing. We can express in so many different ways, and people feel comfortable expressing in different ways. Some children may not have the vocabulary to write a journal entry on how they're feeling or even understand it, yet the mask they make, for example, may be happy, may be sad. Maybe that's reflecting what's going on, and that can start the conversation. What colors did they select or gravitate towards? And all of this can provide insight for you as a parent or professional caring for the child and helping the child. These can also help provide insight to the child as well, and a way to express things that they may not have the words for. Journaling can also be shared through drawing. So perhaps at the end of the session, you encourage children to draw about their yoga sessions, movement, meditation, mindfulness session. I keep slipping back and calling it yoga because to me it's yoga, but I do find that can be intimidating for people. And the heart of what I teach is the movement portion that is yoga-based, breathing and meditation and mindfulness, because that's truly what it is. It is all of those things. So it's both intimidating and also, in a way, I feel the word yoga is not enough. People can, not everybody, but think that the word yoga is just, oh, it's just stretching or it's just exercise. And it's so much more than that, which is why they're the two main reasons I like to call it movement, meditation, and mindfulness. So please forgive me when I slip and call it yoga. So just to explore what they've experienced in this session, or to just take, and again, to have these little moments where you're journaling, or even when you're crafting together, that opens up for discussion. It's like, what did you think about the session today? What did you like? How did that feel? Can really start to encourage children to reflect and express what they find during reflection, if they're comfortable. And again, as I mentioned, just observing, not just listening to the words, but also seeing what's in front of you, what children are drawing, how they're creating, what they're making, what they're gravitating towards, can also provide a lot of insight to the parent or the carer. So we're not limited to writing, and everything we've just explored today is a form of expressive therapy, a chance for a child to explore their inner world and to express what they discover, whether that be feelings or fears or emotions, or and it doesn't have to be negative. It can be like, oh wow, I feel really good, I just stretched and I didn't realize that was good for my body. And that just helps to reinforce what you're teaching. And I had this experience just yesterday. I was working with a patient who was learning some breathing techniques with me for the first time, and he, not me, with zero encouragement, said, oh, I should try this when I'm wanting to go to sleep. And so just these little discussions, and he may not have thought about that by himself had he not expressed it, if that makes sense. Or he might have thought about it but dismissed it, but because he expressed it, and then we had more of a conversation to reinforce it, I'm sure the next time he has trouble sleeping, he's going to remember to do it. Whereas had we not had that conversation, which was a form of journaling in a way, we were discussing at the end. So again, don't get too stuck on it being writing, just some form of exploration, creative exploration, and a creative outlet, whether that be a conversation or making up a song or doing a drawing, or again, exploring some arts and crafts are really fun ways to help kids explore that inner dialogue and feelings and things that, and just awareness of what they're learning in their movement, meditation, and mindfulness sessions. So that ends the session for today. I look forward to connecting with you next time. Session 13 will be movement, meditation, and mindfulness games. And I invite you to join me. We'll be exploring fun games that are age appropriate, developmentally appropriate for each stage. We'll explore games that support physical development, sensory development, cognitive development, social development. So they also, it just like the crafts and arts and crafts today, it sounds like fun and silliness, but once you get into it, you realize that so much more is going on. So beyond the fun engagement, which is the important part of the piece of the puzzle for kids, it's that all of the benefits that we're bringing in, that we know we can strategically plan these games to target certain benefits for children. So I hope you join me next time for games that are wonderful tools to reinforce movement, meditation, and mindfulness skills.